Welcome to the show, titled Conversation with A. Here, we focus on the role behind the person to give you, the viewers, some insight into how to operate in their world.
Hello, my name is Devo, and today we have
Kara. I'm an accountant.
Thank you for being here.
You're welcome.
Are you able to explain to us what an accountant is, please?
An accountant is someone that takes all your business finances and makes sense of them and puts them into a report that's easy to understand. So when you set up a business, you want to make money, and it's really difficult to make money without spending money. So we kind of like put that all in a summary for you, so it can tell you how much money you've made or how much money you've lost, what you've spent, and just kind of analyse it all for you.
And are you a chartered accountant?
I'm not a chartered accountant, and anyone can call themselves an accountant. To be a chartered accountant, you have to do quite a lot of additional exams to what you would have to do if you were to be a normal qualified accountant.
What routes exist for someone to become an accountant?
There's a number of different ways you can get into being an accountant. You can literally leave school at 16 and get an apprenticeship in either industry or practice as a AAT apprentice. You can go to university and get a training contract with a big accountancy firm. They'll put you through the exams to be a chartered accountant. Or like me, you can literally just buy the books and do the exams as you're going along, and just do it that way. It's really big myth that you have to be good at maths to be an accountant. I am so bad at maths, like I can't even function without a calculator. And I think it's one of those things that kind of make people write it off as a career. They think, well, I'm bad at maths, so I can't be an accountant. I never did A-levels, I never went to university, and I'm not good at maths, and I'm an accountant. So, it's possible.
So you can self-teach yourself to become an accountant?
I taught myself. I brought the books and I did it like one at a time. I just studied one exam. I'd spend like 6 weeks on it. I'd take the exam and then I'd move on to the next one. It was tough and it took a long time, but it was totally doable.
When did you decide to become an accountant?
When I was about 17. So I was diagnosed with bone cancer, and because it really affected my mobility, and I was really working in a finance-based role in a really junior position, I felt like I needed to do something that was ultimately going to allow me to sort of like work from home, because it was really painful to commute. And because I was already in that sort of like role anyway, very, very, very junior, I just thought I might as well just go along with it and study to become an accountant. I started studying straight into being an accountant, but it was too difficult, so I went back and I studied and qualified as a bookkeeper, and then later on down the line become an accountant.
And then how long have you been an accountant for?
I have been a qualified accountant for a year, and then I've been a qualified bookkeeper for about 10 years.
So you've been about 11 years of experience in, I can say, accountancy, right?
Yeah.
Within that 11-year time frame, how do you keep up to date with regulation or the new practices? Do you have to take exams?
No, we don't take exams. We do CPD, and it's heavily monitored by a professional body. So we have to plan it, do it, record it, and submit it to them so they can monitor it and make sure we're doing enough of it.
Are there only two routes in terms of practicing? You either work within a company, you work for a company, or you have your own practice and outsource your services?
Pretty much. So we call it industry and practice. Industry is like any old company where you work in the accounts department for it or as the accountant for it. So that could be like motor industry, just anything. And then there's practice, which is obviously accountancy practices. So you're either going to work for an accountancy practice or you're going to set up your own one.
And you've worked within both?
I've never worked in someone else's accountancy practice before. I've worked in industry quite a lot, and then I've set up my own practice.
One pro from each and one con from each?
One pro from each. Industry is a lot more fun because you get sort of like embedded in the culture of another sort of like company. And I predominantly worked for like design agencies and creative agencies. So it was a lot of fun, big entertainment budget, and, we sort of like really enjoyed ourselves. The con would be there's only so far you can go. You can't really, you can develop obviously, but there's only so far within a company you can go. With practice, the pros are you're options are quite limitless in the sense of you can make as much money as you want to make, provided you can get the clients and you plan everything correctly. The cons are the sheer amount of compliance work you have to do. I have to do contracts for everyone. I have to do anti-money laundering checks, risk assessments, and you have to keep on top of those, record them correctly. That is an absolute nightmare to keep on top of.
Again, with accountancy, are there specialised areas?
Yeah, there can be. So you can specialise in certain areas. One thing that people get you confused with, everyone thinks you're a tax advisor, when a tax advisor is like kind of different. It's a whole different qualification. So everyone will be asking you sort of tax questions. Everyone thinks you're a like pension advisor, a financial sort of like advisor, know all about stocks and shares, etc. When no, don't have a clue. You can specialise in certain areas like VAT. You can specialise in tax. Generally speaking, you'll have management accountants and financial accountants. Management accountants analyse your income and expenses to show you kind of like answers in a way that they'd be able to say you increased your advertising expenditure by 20% this month and you got a 50% increase in sales revenue. That sort of analysis. A financial accountant is more along the lines of preparing your statements that you have to submit to Companies House and HMRC.
Is it true to say that in some cases, or maybe most cases, accountants or the services accountants provide are confused with legal services?
In a way. So everyone thinks accountants know everything about money, like absolutely everything there is to do about money. And so I wouldn't say so much legal services. I'd say there's some kind of like familiarity where you think, oh, someone's a solicitor, they'll know about this area of law, that area of law, they'll know about everything to do with law, when that's not the case at all. I think it is similar with accountants in the sense that we tend to have our little area that we know best about and we stick to that area.
I know accountants, like you said, stick to one area, but is it hard keeping up with all the new laws and regulations, and how do you stay on top of that?
It is awful. So this last 18 months has been horrendous because there's been so much change. There's been the furlough, like the changes in VAT. There has been the announcements of the changes in corporate tax. There was Brexit and all the sort of like customs issues. Yeah, it is an absolute nightmare. So our professional bodies will send us articles. We have to go out of our own way to find the information and study it basically. So we'll look for courses, we'll look for articles, we'll attend courses. But yeah, it's our responsibility. No one's spoon feeding us the information. We have to go out and find it.
So there is no sort of central database that alerts you when something's changed or new regulations being implemented?
No, that would be more so. I'm qualified with the AAT, whereas the AAT, they'll email me about certain things. And it's the same with all professional bodies. But there's nowhere that says, okay, you're an accountant, you need to read this.
So with all these the studying, the keeping up with regulations and laws and practices and CPD, do other countries recognise your UK-based accountancy practice?
So, do you mean like, do they recognise me as an accountant or do they recognise my practice?
Well, recognise you as an accountant, but also your accountancy, your accounting methods, sorry, I should say.
Yes, so as individuals, as accountants, it depends on the professional body that they're with. So professional bodies such as the ACCA, ACA and CIMA, they're recognised worldwide because they're like the creme de la creme of accountancy bodies. And then from an accounting perspective, we have something called the Generally Acceptable Accounting Principles, which are basically a way of bringing it all together so it's consistent throughout all the countries. So I could look at a set of financial statements from America and be like, yeah, I know that, I know what that is, I know what that is.
So I'm going to move it away from this line of question and bring it more closer to you.
Yeah.
When it comes to securing clients, how do you promote yourself?
On Instagram. I don't really like promote myself. They will come to me now.
So you built up a large following to get your name out?
Yeah, it didn't. I mean, that didn't happen. That was not my intention. I started posting on Instagram because I did need to, get myself out there. But I also wanted to make accountancy more accessible for small business owners, because there are so many business owners that can't afford accountants when they have to do their accounts. And I just wanted to put some sort of like tips and tricks out there just for them to be able to be like, okay, no, I know what this is all about. I can do that myself. And it just grew from there.
So you mentioned about affordability. How does your fee structure work?
I work on a really fixed way of charging people. So I have 4 different packages, and that's like the bronze, silver, gold and platinum. And the minimum fees for them are sort of like 105, 165. I can't remember because I don't really take clients on those 2. And then within that, there's transactions, so it'll be up to 50 transactions, between 51 and 100 transactions, and then there's different pricing tiers. So every one of my clients will pay the same amount if they fit in with the same. If someone's on a bronze 150 to 200 transactions, they will pay the same as another business that's on that. So it's quite consistent with everyone.
So your fee structure, is that quite similar with other accountancy practices, or is that just how you have decided to do a tier system?
I think it's moving into more the norm. So people don't really work on hourly rates anymore with it, because it's just not financially worthwhile doing it. And I think a lot of people, they will find a way. We get all our clients on fixed fees. 99% of other accountancy practice owners I've spoken to do that. But how they arrive at those fees, we all have our sort of like different ways of doing it.
So in the past, or still now, it was mainly hourly based?
Large accountancy practices, they probably weren't doing that. But a lot of independent, where it was just sort of like an individual with a couple of clients doing hourly rate, that's what they would have been doing.
Okay. So take me through it. I'm a client.
Mm-hmm.
I come to you. I found you on Instagram doing, maybe a tax-based stance.
Yeah. Tax-based stance.
How does it work from the moment I've reached out to you? What's the step?
So you'll click the link in my bio and you'll go to book a discovery call, and you've got to answer quite a few questions before you can book it. And this is so I can filter through if someone's trying to book a discovery call for free tax advice, because you get a lot of that. So I will sort of like review it, and then I will send you over a quote. So I'm really clear on that my prices start from £105 a month. And then I'll look at it because I want to know about if you're VAT registered, what sort of like services you need and how many transactions you have. And I'll email you to say, oh yeah, it looks like that's going to be about X amount a month. And then you'll be like, oh, cancel. Or you'll be like, yeah, cool, we'll go ahead. We'll have a chat. And I just speak to you about your business, and I show you the softwares that we use, and we go through it and how it all works. And then you just let me know whether you want to sign up or not. And then you get a contract sent out to you.
Okay, so be it that you now handle the accounts of maintenance clients.
Yeah.
Does that then make you liable for any issues that may arise from these businesses?
No, everyone is responsible for their own tax and VAT issues. So this is not just me saying to my clients, no, it's your responsibility. This is the thing. Like, you are responsible. If I did something wrong in your tax return, HMRC will still put the ultimate responsibility on the client, which is why we have to have everything reviewed and signed off before we submit it. So before I submit anything to HMRC, I have to send it to them, and I have to explain it to them, and I have to get their approval to submit it. So we have to have a lot of insurance as accountants, obviously, in case something goes wrong. But if we do something wrong, and say a client has underpaid tax by £1,000, that tax bill is still the client's tax bill. We're not going to cover the tax bill just because we got your self-assessment wrong, because regardless, that would still be the amount of tax that they owe. It would be kind of like we'd have to reimburse the cost of the work we've done or correct it.
So fortunately for you, no issues will come back to you in case you've made an error, or
apart from an annoyed client.
Okay, so what if you are reviewing a client's books and you've noticed some, put it politely, missteps or issues? What What do you do and what's the process and what happens then?
So there's two separate things we have to consider. One, have they done it on purpose? And two, is it an accident? So we do have a responsibility to make sure everything is as accurate as possible before we submit it. So we would be looking at all this stuff anyway to make sure we're happy with it. So if we discovered any irregularities and it was, just them trying to do it themselves and not quite getting it right, then we're just going to fix it for them, because we're not going to submit it like that, being like, oh, well, you know what, they didn't pay me for that particular transaction, so I'm not going to do that. Just going to fix it, because at the end of the day, we want to keep our clients happy. If it turns out our client is making mistakes on purpose and it looks like money laundering, we have to stop working on their books immediately, seek permission from an official body to continue working on them so our client doesn't realise we've stopped working on them, and report them for money laundering, and they'll be investigated by the NCA for potential money laundering. We're not allowed to let our client know this, obviously, and we can actually get in trouble ourselves if we do anything that is classed as tipping off, like giving them any hints. We can actually face up to 5 years in prison. So it's quite serious. So we do have to take that very seriously.
And do you have any horror stories?
Oh, I do. So I had a young lad come to me once for a self-assessment, and he worked in the construction industry. So he was what we call a CIS subby. And what happens is the person that's paying him has to report the amount to HMRC every month, and at the end of the year he needs to do a self-assessment. So he came to me for his self-assessment, and I looked at one of his wage slips and I was like, yeah, there's something really, really wrong here. And I basically had to say to him, I'm sorry, but I can't do your self-assessment. And I literally just had to cut it off at that point, and I had to report it because the contractor was laundering £18,000 a month through him, which was a really stupid way to do it, I have to say. There are better ways to do it. But he was using this young 18-year-old lad who knew absolutely no different to launder money. It was absolutely disgusting.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Do you know what became?
No, I won't get told. And obviously I had to stop, I had to just flat out say, no, I'm not doing your self-assessment. So I've never heard from him again.
So besides stopping potential criminals, what is your day-to-day routine?
I get up, I get in my dressing gown, I put on a murder documentary, and I just sit on my computer with my computer on my lap all day, going through my emails. I've got team members that help me out quite a lot because I'm trying to massively cut back on the amount of work I'm doing, and I'll just go through people's books, just update it. We use so much software to streamline everything that a lot of it is literally just clicking buttons and okaying stuff, emailing the clients just to say what we need from them, doing your set of accounts. It's quite nice, actually.
So what are some of the most common reasons why a potential client or client seeks you out?
Number of reasons, really. One, they've tried doing it themselves and they just don't have a clue what they're doing. Or two, they are doing it themselves. They do know what they're doing, but they just don't have the time for it anymore. It's always going to be the biggest burden you face as a business owner, is just keeping up with your bookkeeping and accounts. Or we have people that just don't have a clue, and they get really stressed out because they don't have a clue, but no one is expecting you to have a clue, because at the end of the day, I know these things because I actively studied it. I don't expect anyone else to know it, especially if they don't work in the industry. And number four, they just want more time back for themselves.
So there has been instances where a client has sought your services and you looked over what they've done and it was absolutely horrible.
Oh my God, yeah. So those ones are the worst, when they say that they've done it all themselves and they're all proud of themselves, because you'll look at it and you'll be like, what is this? This is so bad. It's so wrong. And you have to fix it all. But because in their head, they can't get past the point of it. It's but I've already done it. And you're trying to argue with them that you've done it really badly. It's all done really wrong. Not in those exact words, but it's that sort of really awkward conversation you have to say where, you've spent hours doing this consistently over the last few months, but actually I've got to undo it all and start again because you've done it all wrong, and you might as well have just come to me months ago.
So your advice would be to resist the temptation of doing it yourself and just seek some professional help?
Not always. I think you need to just trust a professional with what they're saying. absolutely try to do it yourself if you feel like you can. But if the professional is saying to you it's wrong, believe them.
What would you say are the attributes that a potential accountant or an accountant needs to have?
Attention to detail. You do really have to have attention to detail. And it's almost like, I would describe being an accountant like doing a puzzle where you haven't actually got all the pieces, or they're in different boxes. So you have to kind of like really be able to focus and just be like, right, I'm completing this puzzle today and getting it done. Attention like to detail is obviously essential in that sense. And patience, a lot of patience.
Is that, when you say patience, is that because of clients, or is that because of the work?
Both really. So yeah, you have to have one type of patience for the clients, because some of them can really, really, really wind you up, and they don't mean to, bless them, but it can be really frustrating. And then you've got to have patience just with the whole system in general as well. Like, it's really bad. HMRC's website is appalling. Like, the way it sort of like functions and it works, I swear they make it purposely difficult to keep accountants in jobs, but you have to have a lot of patience for that as well, and just feel like, well, you know what, it is what it is, so we're just going to deal with it.
Okay, and this is the last question, and it's probably the most important question. Something that we ask all our guests. What song would you like to include in our playlist?
The Offspring, The Kids Aren't Alright. It's been stuck in my head like for about 3 weeks now.
And that is The Offspring, The Kids Aren't Alright.
Yeah.
Thank you very much.
Literally been stuck in my head and non-stop.
Thank you for being here.
You're welcome. It was lovely meeting you. Oh, it's really high pitched then. So you're welcome. Hi, I'm Kara. I'm an accountant, and you've been watching Asani TV.
If you want to be part of the show or are interested in any advertising and sponsorship opportunity, the links are in the description. If you've enjoyed this video, please do comment, like, share, and subscribe.